Many of us know that the Bible was not originally written in English. It was written in Greek or Hebrew. So how do we get back and understand what some of these English words were actually in the Greek and Hebrew? One of those tools that we can use is Blue Letter Bible here. It's a free website, blueletterbible.org, that we can use to do word studies and to see what this English word is translated from. So the Old Testament was originally written in Hebrew. So think of this red line as the Hebrew Old Testament. Around 300 BC or so, there were a group of Alexandrian Jews who translated the whole Old Testament into Greek. And this is what we call the Septuagint. And then, years go on, Christ comes, and his disciples and followers write the New Testament in Greek as well. And so these are kind of the three foundational sources in Scripture that we use. We have the Hebrew Old Testament, the Greek Old Testament, the Septuagint, and the Greek New Testament. And the reason why the Septuagint is important is because many words and concepts that are used here in the New Testament are actually, they're thinking of how they were used in the Septuagint, because they used the Septuagint a lot because it was in Greek. So we need to look at them all in order to best understand words and concepts in the Bible. So how does Blue Letter Bible help us with that? Well, here we go. This is the homepage of Blue Letter Bible. And let's say we are up a word, we're reading in Colossians 1. And typically when you do a word study, you want to look up either words you don't understand or words that you think are significant, maybe even religious Bible-y words like faith, grace, or mercy, or big words that are hard to understand, maybe like propitiation or sanctification, expiation, words like that. So Colossians 1:15, you're reading along, you say, who is the image of the invisible God? You see that image word, and you want to know what does this word image mean in the Greek? This is the New Testament, so it's in Greek. So the first thing you want to do is just look at the phrase that it's in. So you want to start out small and get wider and wider and wider and get a bigger context near the end. So start out small. So first you want to look at the phrase. And so you want to do is just put a blank here where the image is at. So who is the blank of the invisible God? So just by that, what can we know about this word? Well, it's here being contrasted with this invisible God. It's the something of the invisible God. So we can assume that it's visible and that it's some sort of representation of God, right? Since it's representing this invisible God. And that's very close to the heart of the meaning of this word image. And we got that just by putting a blank and looking at the phrase around it. And that's how we get word meanings. We look at the context in which a word is used. And so to more fully understand this word, because all words have different meanings, or a wide range of meanings. Like if you think of the word run, it can mean your nose is running. It can mean you're running on a track. It can mean a whole bunch of things. So are there other meanings that image could mean, or like that would help us maybe better understand or give us a different feel for what this word might mean? So the way we want to do that is now take a step back, look at its sentence, read it in its sentence, and take another step back, read it in its paragraph. And so, you'll notice that it's in this Christological hymn, and then even take another step back. How is it used in the argument of the chapter or in the argument of the book? And then you start asking questions. Is this word used elsewhere in this book of Colossians? So how do we figure that out? We use that by clicking on the verse here, and it brings up this interlinear Bible. Interlinear is just that it puts the English and the Greek side by side, and then it has this Strong's number, which just categorizes all the Greek and Hebrew words. And so here we have image, and we see that the Greek word here is ikon. Click on it, and here's what we got. This is the page that it'll bring you to, and it just gives you a whole bunch of random information about ikon, or not really random, but important information. So the first thing that you can do is you can come down here, and this is a concordance. A concordance shows you all of the places where a word is used here in the New Testament. So we can come to Colossians. Here's the verse that we're doing, and we can see that it's used in Colossians 3 as well. So you can go and do the same thing. Read this one in its context and figure out what it means. And then we can take another step back from Colossians and think, how does the letters of Paul use it? And so we see that it's used in Romans and Corinthians and Second Corinthians. Read all those, and then take another step back and read the rest of the books in the New Testament. See how all that is used. And so once you do that, then you have an understanding of how ikon is used in the New Testament. And then, remember, we still have the Old Testament and the Septuagint, the Hebrew Old Testament and the Septuagint, that we can also use to help us. So how do we get to know and understand how the Old Testament uses it? Well, what we can do here, this is a lexicon, so it's just a dictionary, pretty much, a Greek dictionary. And it is important to read through the lexicon and to understand the meanings that it gives. So here it gives us kind of a summary of what that is, and then two different definitions of how it's used. And we can see here that Colossians 1:15, it's put in the second one. And so you want to read through and figure out why did this writer put ikon and how it's used in Colossians 1:15 in this second one. So it's important to read and understand all these words. Like if you don't know what metonymically means, look it up and figure out what it means. And that way you can understand what the arguments are and how this word is being used. And this is going to give you sometimes, I don't see any Old Testament here, but it does talk about how Cicero uses it, which is a writer outside the Bible, obviously. But it'll sometimes give you how it's used in the Old Testament. Or here you go, Septuagint. It gives you the Hebrew word a little bit. So there you go. Try to understand everything that the lexicon is saying, and then you can come up here. This gives you different Greek inflections. So in Greek, words change the way that they're written based on how they're used in the sentence. So if it's used as a direct object, it's going to be accusative. If it's used as a noun, it's going to be a nominative, and so on. These are dative and genitive. But you can come here to, this is the morphological Greek New Testament, so you can search the word based on how it's inflected. Or you can come here to the Septuagint, and this is going to, if you click on one of the morphologies, one of the inflections, you can see how this inflection is used in the Septuagint. And so you'll see you have like, we are made after the image and likeness of God. But then you also have these, don't corrupt yourselves with graven image. So there's two obvious different meanings in the Septuagint. And you can click through and go and look at all those, and that will give you an understanding. And then after you've done that, you have the Old Testament. You can even take another step out, and are there other similar words? And the way you can do that is just search image up here in this search. And if you come to this lexicon tab, it's going to give you all of these words that have image in its definition. And you can look and do a word study, quick word studies on these words, and that'll help you understand the distinctions between these different words and help you better fine-tune what the meaning of ikon is. And then after that, you can look in dictionaries, and even some commentaries if you want to find those. And after that, write down your findings, share it with a friend, let everyone know what is the meaning of ikon and why is that important to us today. And that is how you get behind the English into the Greek and Hebrew.